The diagram shows that Peter is standing 60 meters due north of Anne, while Robert is 120 meters on a bearing of 100 meters, on a bearing of 100 degrees from Peter. And so here we have the diagram. It says, show that the distance of Robert from Anne is 124 meters, correct to the nearest meter. And so here, our goal is to show the distance, to show that the distance of Robert from Anne is 124 meters. And so basically, notice that this is Robert and this is Anne, and our goal is to show that this particular side of this triangle is equal to 124 meters, right? That's what we have to show. And so we're gonna let A equal the distance in meters of Robert from Anne, right? And so we're gonna call this side A, the missing side, the side that we're trying to find, we're gonna call that side A, right? Small a. And so if we call that small a, then we could use the cosine rule to figure out what is small a. And the cosine rule says that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of capital A. And so let's label our triangle. So we're gonna call, oh, by the way, before we get into that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out what is this missing side, what is this missing angle. Now we know that angles on a straight line at a common point add up to 180 degrees. So if this is 100, then that means that this angle right here is 80 degrees, okay? So if this is 100, this must be 80 because altogether they add up to 180 degrees. And so this right here is 80 degrees, and we're gonna call that capital A, right? So capital A is equal to 80 degrees, and we got that because angles on a straight line add up to 180, and we know that this is 100, and so 180 minus 100 gives us 80, so this is 80. So A is 80, that's capital A, and the angle, the side that is opposite capital A is small a, right? That's the missing side. And the other sides are B and C. So B is 120 meters and C is 60 meters. Now that we have everything, we're gonna substitute. And so A is unknown. We don't know what A is, so that is what we're trying to find. B is 120, right? C is 60. B is 120 and C is 60. And capital A is 80 degrees. And so we compute, we say 120 squared plus 60 squared is equal to 18,000. Then we have 2 times 120 times 60 is 14,400 cosine of 80 degrees. And then we compute this. And so we say that 18,000 minus 14,400 times cosine of 80 degrees is equal to 15,499.466242. That's what a squared is equal to. So next we're going to take the square root of both sides, because if we do that, then the root, if we do that, let me show you. If we do that, then if we take the square root of both sides, then this root, the square root, we cancel out with this power. All right, so let me show that again. Erase. So this root will cancel out with the power, right? And so that means that we'll be just left with what? A, right? So A is equal to the square root of 15,499.466242. Now, what is the square root of this number at the bottom? Well, the square root of this number is going to be 124.49685,234. And if we were to round correct to the nearest whole number, we know that this number is 4. And so since this number is 4, we cannot round up. So we just have 124. So that means that A is equal to 124 meters. And so that means that the distance of Robert from Anne is 124 meters. And so we showed, using the cosine rule, that we are able to get 124 meters correct to the nearest meter. And that's our answer. Next, it says calculate the bearing of Anne from Robert. The bearing of Anne from Robert. So the bearing of Anne from Robert. So since we have to go from Robert, that means that our starting point will be Robert. and we draw a north, right? And then we go in this direction all the way until we reach An. And so this is what we have, okay? So our goal is to figure out, okay, what is, what is, what is this, what is this, what is this angle, right? That's the bearing. So this angle right here, what I have shaded, that is the bearing, right? That's the bearing of Anne from Robert, starting from here, going all the way to here. That's the bearing. And so we have to figure what this is, right? All of this angle. And so what we're gonna do is we have um, we have we took so we did is we took this same triangle and we drew it again, okay? And we have that we have this north, right? So this is 100, this is 80, right? We have 120 meters, we have 124, and we have 60. And we drew a north from Robert, right? All the way up. And we said that from here all the way to here, right? Again, from here all the way to here, we're gonna call that M, right? M. M is what we're gonna call it. So from here all the way to here, we call that M. Now the thing is, if we know what is, when we call this angle right here, that the angle that is inside the triangle, we call that angle A, all right? Now this right here is 80 degrees, and that's because, let me tell you why that's 80 degrees. Well, let me highlight it for you. So this right here is 80 degrees because of co-interior angles. If you notice that this right here and this, right, right, that forms a C, right? So that's a C shape. So, and what do we know about when we have a C shape? So this is going to be what we call co-interior angles, all right? Because we have the C shape that is being formed with with these parallel lines and a transversal. So we have the C shape, and we call this co-interior angles. What do we know about co-interior angles? Well, co-interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So since we know that this was 100, then definitely this is going to be 80 degrees, okay? So that's why this is 80, all right? And so let me erase all ink. And so what we're going to do is, remember, our goal is to figure out what is the bearing from here, what is the angle from here all the way to here. And that's what M is, right? M is the bearing of Anne from Robert. So this is Robert here. We draw a north and we go in this direction all the way until we reach the Anne. And so this M is our answer. M is the bearing of Anne from Robert. But what we're gonna do is we say, okay, well, if I know what this is, if I know what this angle is, I already know what this angle is. If I add these two together, right? If I add these two together, 80 and A, if I add them together and take that sum and subtract it from 360, then I should be left with the bearing, right? I should be left with the bearing of Anne from Robert. I should just be left with this particular angle. So our goal is to find out what angle A is, add it to 80, and then take that sum and subtract it from 360 degrees, and that's going to give me what is this bearing, right? What is going to be angle M, all right? And so we let M equal to bearing of Anne from Robert. That's what M is, the bearing of Anne from Robert, okay? And then it follows that M is equal to 360 minus A plus 80. That's what we are saying. In order for us to get the bearing, this one right here, we have to add A and 80. We have to add A and 80. When we take that sum, we're going to subtract it from 360 degrees, and that should give us what M is. But first, we have to figure out what is A. And we're going to use the cosine rule to figure out what is the size of angle A. And so using the cosine rule, what we have here is, let's label it. Okay, I didn't label it. So let's label it. So this is A, right? And let me go over the side that is opposite capital A. We call that small a, right? So small a. And then we have, let me use a pen. And then we have, um, Um, then we have this side right here, and this side is 120, and we have this side right here. This side is 124. Now 124 is going to be um, B. Okay, so this is B, and C is 120. Okay, so the cosine formula or the cosine rule formula says cosine of A is equal to B squared plus C squared minus A squared all over 2 all over 2. 124 is B, 2B, and 120 is C, 2BC. Okay, and so that's the formula. So remember, like we said, B is 124, so that's why we put 124 here. C is 120, so we put C squared. A is 60. Okay, and the reason why we know that A is 60 is because the small a is 60, right? And then 2 times B, well, B is 124, and C is 120. So we have 124 squared plus 120 plus 120 squared minus 60 squared, all divided by 2 times 124 times 120. Okay, and so this is the cosine rule that we use. Now that we have the values in, let us answer this question and compute. And so we have that the numerator simplifies to 26,176. So 124 squared plus 120 squared minus 60 squared is going to be 26,176. And then we have 2 times 124 times 120, and that gives us 29,760. So that is what cosine of A is equal to. Next, we take the cosine inverse of both sides of this equation. And so what ends up happening is this cosine inverse cancel out with cosine. And so we just left with A, right? So we left with A is equal to, right? A is equal to cosine inverse of 26,176 divided by 29,760. And so when we do cosine inverse of this fraction, what do we get? Well, we get 28.40947674. And so that means that since we have what A is, right? We have what A is. We know that A is equal to 28.40947674. We know what A is. We're going to add A to 80. And we're going to take that sum and subtract it from 360 degrees. And so we have 28.40947674. So we have 28.40947674 plus 80 degrees. And when we add those two, we get 108.4094764. And so that is the sum of those two. But then we subtract it from 360. And when we subtract it from 360, when we take away this sum from 360, we get 251.5905233. And so that is what the bearing of Anne from Robert is equal to. 251.5905233. Okay, now we write it correct to 2 decimal places. So correct to 2 decimal places, since 0 is less than 5. That means that we eliminate these numbers and this is going to stay 5. And so we have 251.59. And so that's the bearing of Anne from Robert, 251.59. And that's the answer to this question.